One thing that Nintendo does from time to time is release alternate versions of their games in their illustrious franchises, some of which change things around drastically, and some are just a direct port onto another console. The Super Mario Bros. Franchise is really no different, and for today's video, I thought it'd be interesting to look at the weirdest version of each title, showing off their changes that at times can be pretty wacky. Oh yeah, before we get started here, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting the bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. Of course, the very first title to be released in the mainline series is Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, actually having one different version of this original game that could be considered weird, which is the all-night Nippon, Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom. This was oddly a complete retool of the original game that was all based around the Japanese radio program called All Night Nippon, done just as a promotional thing to celebrate the broadcast's 20th anniversary, as well as Mario's popularity. Only around 3,000 copies were made available, with only 1,000 of them being able to be bought in store shelves. Otherwise, you needed to send a postcard to be entered into a lottery to get a chance of getting one of the other 2,000. So to say having a physical copy of this title is rare is really an understatement. Some of the changes made to this strange version include World 1 taking place entirely at night, the graphics actually being from the second Famicom entry, which can be seen in stuff like the bricks and background objects, enemies, sprites, and certain characters being changed to the likenesses of DJs at the station, the Starman being changed into a Haranya, which was a symbol from Yuji Mayak's Young Paradise that also looks a bit like the Star of David. The Nippon Broadcasting System logo is used for the game's flags and axes. Princess Peach can be seen in traditional Japanese princess dress wear, along with her hair being tied up. And finally, some of the levels are actually from the Lost Levels entry and not the original game, even having worlds A to D, although there are many small changes within them. This creation is definitely an anomaly, not only from Mario, but also Nintendo, as they don't usually let people use their intellectual properties in this way, so we should be happy that something like this exists, as in the grand scheme of things, we'll never see anything close to it again. The second of the original NES trilogy is Super Mario Bros. 2 that came out in North America in September of 1988, having a couple of alternate versions of this title that I want to look at, starting with Super Mario Bros. USA, which would be released twice in two of its own versions. The first would be on the Famicom in 1992, being an almost one-to-one port of that NES classic. Although, believe it or not, that game was actually a reskin of another game entirely called Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which was made as an acknowledgement to Mario platforming, making this title a port of a reskin of a homage, if that makes sense. Really, the only changes made were to the title screen, now using the same brown and black palette of the bonus chance game, and of course on the box art, that here resembles more of what it did in the Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic box art. Oh yeah, and just as a side note, the reason for the reskin in the first place is that Nintendo felt like the true Japanese sequel to the original would be too difficult for Western audiences to enjoy, so they instead took an existing property and Mario-fied it to their liking. Now, the second version of this version would come out in Japan in 1996 on the Satellaview Super Famicom add-on, and will be called BS Super Mario USA. The BS in the title stands for Broadcast Satellite, and this is fitting as that's exactly how you connect to the internet-like servers to experience games in a drastically different way, with this one having certain features added that really set it apart from the basic game. Firstly, this was released in 4 separate parts over a 4-week event, where players needed to collect a gold Mario statue within each level, defeat that specific world's boss, and defeat Ward at the end, with leaderboards being kept to see how many points a player has accumulated. Secondly, this was a port of the Super Mario All-Stars SNES version of the game and not the NES original, meaning it sported updated graphics, character models, and much better color quality, although not changing much in terms of gameplay as it's still the same old experience we know and love. Third and finally, the weirdest thing about this title is the voiceover dialogue that has been added for specific characters to explain what's going on while you play. Something that's just not a thing in Super Mario entries. The final of the original NES trilogy is Super Mario Bros. 3, that came out for the system in 1990. where I'd have to say the strangest variant of it is the one released for the Game Boy Advance called Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. This handheld title was the fourth of the Mario ports released on the system, and is literally just the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game with the exact same gameplay. Although, the graphics do more closely resemble the original artwork, and the sides of the screens that were missing in the NES version are now drawn properly, so you won't have to play through with those awkward black borders. One real major change, however, is the use of the system's e-reader add-on, which was a device that would let you swipe cards, where in this game, one of three things can happen depending on which one you have. These include causing a level to spawn, which can be anything from classic stages to one specifically made for this entry, causing a power-up to spawn in your inventory, with the best probably being the 100 1-up mushrooms one, or the cape feather, which is a really weird thing to have in this environment, or the speedrunning demo cards, which has Mario moving through levels for you, collecting a lot of coins, and can lead to 1-ups or white mushroom houses. One of the cards even shows you how to do the 1-up exploit in World 1 too, which is just hilarious, as it means that developers are well aware of the secrets that their fans have found. Next, I want to look at one very weird version of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, which is Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for the Game Boy. Now, the initial gameplay is just the original NES entry, but with many changes like way tighter physics, the camera being zoomed in way more, a world map being added, which is a nice little visualization of your progress, and a challenge mode that lets you re-enter any level you've already beaten, and complete a set of challenges like getting all 5 hidden coins, scoring a specific amount of points, and finding the green spotted Yoshi egg, where getting all of this will give you bonus pictures and rewards to view in the toy box area. Where the Lost Levels comes into play is if you collect a grand total of 300,000 points in the base game, which unlocks this weird version in the main menu, allowing you to play from Worlds 1 to 8. For some reason, Worlds 9 to D, the secret ones that unlock once you beat the game, have been completely removed even though they're in the game's files. Also, the wind hazards have been removed as well, and those stages are changed a bit so you can actually make those jumps without it. I guess done due to the rudimentary limitations of the portable system, but I'm not really sure. Probably the strangest addition to this Frankenstein of a title is the U versus Boo mode that unlocks after you get 100,000 points, where here, you have to race against a Boo to the end of the level. The Boos have an insane advantage as they can pass right through all of the walls and obstacles without slowing down at all, meaning this really puts your speedrunning skills to the test as you try to beat the different ones you encounter. I believe this is essentially all for clout and not much else, but if I left anything out or didn't say anything else about Super Mario Bros. Deluxe that I should have, then please let me know in the comments below. The very first handheld game to be released in the franchise is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, where the only weird version I want to look at isn't even one made by Nintendo, and is actually a fan-made title called Super Mario Land DX. All this ROM hack does is add color to Daisy's Sarasa Land, as the original Game Boy only allowed for a grayscale display, while also here modernizing the graphics just a bit so that the quality is sharper. Not too much else to say about this one, other than I think it's a beautiful homage, and I love when the fans go out of their way to try and improve what they enjoy. Next to be released in the series is Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, having two distinctly weird versions of the game, starting with the Nintendo Super System. This was an arcade cabinet that featured you being able to play one of 12 games, which included ActRaiser, The Addams Family, Contra 3 The Alien Wars, David Crane's Amazing Tennis, F-Zero, Lethal Weapon, NCAA Basketball, RoboCop 3, The Iron Skins game, Super Soccer, Super Tennis, and the aforementioned Super Mario World. All play with an SNES-like controller that's built directly into the machine. What's interesting is that in Super Mario World, you pick which zone of the game you want to explore during the title select screen, letting you play here all within a certain amount of time. After that time's up, the machine asks if you want to put in more coins to play again, which I'm sure felt like a bit of a letdown back in the day, as this type of gameplay doesn't feel fulfilling as it's more of a demo. But I guess if you didn't own one of these games and just wanted to test drive them, then I guess it's a great way to do so. The other version of the game I want to mention is the Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2 Game Boy Advance entry, which changes a few small things here and there to up the quality. with the most notable being added cutscenes to better explain what's going on during your adventures. They also made a list that properly displays secret exits you've missed, along with any dragon coins you still need to collect. There's also the fact that Luigi now moves differently than Mario, jumping a bit higher but also moving slower. The maximum amount of lives here being changed from 99 to 999, and some level designs being altered to account for the system's lack of vertical screen space, adding platforms or removing enemies where needed. The second handheld entry in the mainline franchise is Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins for the Game Boy. With just like the first one, the only alternate version I want to look at is the DX fan-made creation. Again, all that's really changed here are that the graphics are slightly updated, and color has been added again to make everything higher quality again. I get that adding ROM hacks or modded games is a bit of a cop-out when looking at alternate versions in this video, but these ones are just a really positive upgrade that don't tinker too much with what we know and love, so they're just great. The very first game based within the 3D realm is Super Mario 64 for the N64, where I think it's pretty easy to say that the weirdest variant of it is Super Mario 64 DS. Believe it or not, this is not a direct port of that 1996 release, but almost a completely remade game that adds in some absolutely crazy changes that really factor into the gameplay. One of my favorite inclusions are the extra playable characters in Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario, all of which have their own attributes and skills that you need to use to your advantage to collect certain stars. This marks really the only time that Wario is a good guy in a Super Mario Bros. Game, something that would never happen again as he's been delegated to his own minigame series and shows up here and there in ensemble titles. This one also adds brand new courses into the mix, like the Sunshine Isles one where you have to get 5 silver coins to get the star, the Goomba's boss battle area containing a couple stars, and of course the battle against the Goombas that gives you Mario's key, the Battle Fort secret level found in the Mushroom Castle's courtyard behind bricks containing 1 star, the Big Boo battle area, access through the Luigi portrait on the mansion's 3rd floor, leading to a very cool fight and of course Luigi's key, and the Chief Chili challenge where you need to defeat that ice cold boss and collect the key that leads to unlocking Wario. In addition, there's also tons of new stars to gather within each course, sometimes needing a specific character to get them, leading to you being able to get 150 in total instead of the regular 120. I think that maybe the strangest thing to be put in the game is its versus mode, where the objective is to have the most power stars in your inventory when the time runs out, being able to attack opponents to steal them, as well as being able to be attacked to lose them. This was tons of fun back in the day, especially as it only required one of your friends to have a cartridge, meaning that as long as other people had the system, you could play pretty much for free. The next game based within the 3D realm is Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, where the version of it I want to talk about is the 3D All-Stars one, as things were updated for the Switch that caused weird things to happen. The best example of this is the conversion from the 4:3 aspect ratio that was better for older box TVs, to 16:9 for widescreen displays that also includes the switches, which caused the developers to decide to just stretch and zoom in some of the cutscenes instead of remaking them. This only looks a little bit funny in a few instances, but otherwise Nintendo did a great job with this port. And I'm glad that I could play a copy of this game again, as I had it stolen as a kid and never completed it. Next, we're going to look at an interesting version of the space-based Super Mario Galaxy Wii entry, which is the one that came out in China of all places for the Nvidia Shield. This was a huge deal as the Wii was not a system allowed for sale in China, so even being able to download this game, albeit for a limited time from 2018 to 2021, was a good thing. This specific version was much closer to the 3D All-Star one than the original, being displayed in crisp 1080p with upscaled sprites and textures. The next to be released is the second installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Series that came out for the Wii in 2009, which has an arcade-adjacent game that shares many of the same elements, but also many differences. This was a Japanese-only made cabinet developed by Capcom called New Super Mario Bros. Wii Coin World, where you and 3 friends duke it out to see who can achieve the most coins and keys to get a chance to beat Bowser and win a jackpot. The gameplay is sort of a mix between slots and New Super Mario Bros. Platforming, meaning you're going to need a bit of luck and a bit of skill to win this one, That is, if you get to play it. Nintendo would eventually come out with a sequel to their Super Mario Galaxy title, also on the Wii, but this time here in 2010, where there isn't necessarily a weird version of the game, but instead a weird title that's given to it in Korean markets, where it's randomly called Super Mario Wii 2. I think also the first game was also called Super Mario Wii, and I really couldn't find a real reason for why this game is named something completely different in just one specific country in the world, but it might have something to do with copyright, or the word meaning something bad in that language. Also, just as a note, I like how the Wii sound effect used in the title is just from Mario long jumping. Listen.
Super Mario Wii! Woohoo!
Nintendo would eventually blend aspects of the 2D and 3D realms with the release of Super Mario 3D Land for the 3DS, where in my opinion the weirdest version of it is a mod made for Super Mario 3D World that just melds the 3D Land environment into it. Really not much else to say about this meticulously made fan creation, other than surprised Nintendo didn't think of this themselves, as right now there's no way of playing the base game other than on the 3DS. Up next, we're going to focus on the final of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series that came out for the Wii U in 2012, where by far the strangest version of it is the new Super Luigi U DLC, which came out as a celebration of Mario Bros. 30 years of existence. The gameplay in this one is relatively similar to the base entry, but is designed to be way more difficult, due to it being packed with way more enemies and obstacles, along with there being way less time to complete each stage. Also, just like in past games featuring Luigi as a playable character, his jumps are much higher, but has much lower traction in his movements. So even that kind of adds to the difficulty as you try and navigate through these tough environments. Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U is next to come out in the franchise, and has a re-release version that eventually came out for the Switch, with a very odd Bowser's Fury game mode bundled alongside it. Now, the base game isn't a direct port, and there are a few changes. Most specifically when it comes to your character's movement speed, as you can see how much faster you now can traverse in these worlds. One of my biggest complaints of the original game was about how slow you move. So this is a welcome upgrade, as a few of the stages began to feel like a slog, and I feel like this is an improvement. There are other small tweaks, like allowing for amiibo functionality, making the controls a lot more like Super Mario Odyssey, or tweaking the Captain Toad stages so they're more like the Switch's Treasure Tracker standalone entry. But either way, none are as big as the movement one. Now, I guess I do also have to go through the Bowser's Fury game mode, which was one of the main draws of paying full price for this game, where here you're transported to a place called Lake Lapcat, needing to face off against a toxified Bowser and free him from this land. Here you collect cat shines to unlock different areas of the world, where at times Bowser will begin to rampage and you need to beat him a varying amount of times to win. This is weird, but fun, and shows that once in a blue moon, Nintendo will think outside the box. The final game we're going to mention that has a weird version of it is Super Mario Odyssey, where version 1.01 was absolutely full of wacky bugs, where you could break the game in some hilarious ways. A few of my favorite glitches that could occur upon launch of the game include the Talkatoo camera lock glitch, which could be used to cheat the jump rope game, as well as cause some insane visual things to occur, the frog swimming glitch that could be used to completely skip a long journey's end on the darker side of the moon, the Gushin respawn glitch that you could easily use to get out of bounds, and a few other stage clips that would be used as the first out-of-bounds balloons locations when Luigi's Balloon World was released. I'm not sure why Nintendo decided to patch some glitches but not others, although sometimes their decisions defy explanation, so I've learned just not to question things. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at Copycat Gamer. There I upload some cool clips and items from my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!